Hello everyone, and thank you once again for joining me on my channel. Today we're going to show you how to switch out your existing electrical outlets to ones that have USB plugs in them. Oops. So why would you want to do this? Well, obviously nowadays you have a lot of equipment, cell phones, cameras, things of that nature that require USB plugs to plug into. And a lot of times you have to plug in the adapter into a regular outlet and then plug in the USB cord into that outlet, and sometimes it's cumbersome to carry both and you just want to plug in this USB cord directly into an outlet. So this will show you how to do that. Now, first thing to remember is always make sure when you're working with electricity is to make sure the outlet is turned off by your breaker switches. I've already gone ahead and done that. Just to show you, we're going to plug in the tester and make sure it doesn't light up. Never do this when your electricity is on, but you can see here nothing is lit up, so we're good to go. Another thing, as you'll see, is I have some plug protectors. We have children at home and we don't want to get their fingers stuck in here while the electricity is on and electrocute themselves. The beauty of these new plugs are that you can't actually physically put anything inside of them. If you look very closely inside the plugs, they're actually covered up with some slots, and you won't be able to put anything inside of them individually. If I try to, for instance, put one of these prongs in there, I just can't get it in there because you have these little panels behind there. However, the way it works is if you have two things that go in at the same time, the panels will open up. And that is a new safety feature in these plugs. So no matter what you do, if you try to put one finger or one stick or whatever you do in one of these plugs, it will not open up. You'll need to have something where you have both at the same time, and little kids don't usually have the ability to put two things at the same time in one of these plugs. So this is pretty much a safety feature that I would recommend anyone get. Even if it doesn't have USB, at least replace these plugs with ones like these that have that safety feature. Now, the tools you'll need are pretty simple. You'll need a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver, or star head, as you can see here. Some people call it a star head or a Phillips, and a flathead, and some needle nose pliers, and you'll see why we need those. Sometimes you can get away without using the needle nose pliers, but I recommend for ease use these. Don't use power tools. This needs the dexterity of a hand, and you don't need the forcefulness of a power tool. You could actually crack the plastic and maybe into your wall as well. So just use some hand tools. Now let's get started. It's fairly basic here. First thing you do is any plug in your wall will usually have a faceplate and the actual electrical outlet in there. First thing to do is remove the faceplate, and to do that you remove this one screw. Typically it's a flathead. And you don't need to take the screw out all the way. Typically, once you get enough of it, you can do it by finger and take it out like that. And that's what it looks like on the back. This is what your outlet looks like without the faceplate on there. Kind of ugly, right? So that's what the faceplate is for, is to cover up all of this hole so you see a nice clean finish. So what you see now are two screws that are holding it into the electrical box, which is behind it, and you need to take those screws out. These screws are typically either flathead or star head, or even some of these, they are Robertsons. A Robertson is a square screwdriver, which is very popular up in Canada. And those are actually pretty nice screwdrivers to have if you have screws that have square heads, which these ones kind of do. They have a square head, which you can't really see, but I'll show it to you once I take it out. But they also have a little flat portion too. So this, you could use your flathead screwdriver and start taking it out. Now, if you've never taken out one of your outlets before, they might be covered in layers of paint if you've painted your homes, or if you had someone else come in and paint your homes. What they typically do is they take off the faceplate and they leave these outlets on, and they paint these portions here and they'd be stuck onto the wall. And don't be afraid to go in and chisel out the corners with your screwdriver, because again, if you make any gouges or dents or scrape off any paint, it will get covered by the faceplate at the end of the day. So don't go too wild, but just take it out. So just work it so that you do the top and the bottom one at a time. In my case, the top one seems to be a bit easier to go to, and it might take a bit some effort to get the bottom one out. I'll go to my Phillips head. It's a bit easier, but it looks like the screw is stripping. So just keep working it and it'll eventually come out. Hopefully yours is easier than what I have here. There we go. And it's popping right out. So that one popped out on top. Let's get the bottom one out. Hopefully yours is a bit easier than this. And worst comes to worst, you could also use your needle nose pliers and start taking it out. Whatever tools in the tray, but now it's come out. So here's where a lot of people's outlets will differ. Some people will have screws on the side where they have the black hot wire and the white wire, which mine just popped out. That's okay. And you just unscrew them and you take out these wires. Either there'll be 2 screws on this side, or 1 screw on this side, 1 screw on the other side, and all you have to do is unscrew them. It's pretty easy and straightforward if you see it how to do it. This one here is not as straightforward. I just popped the white one back in to show you. If you have something like this, there's 1 or 2 things you can do. One thing is to cut off these wires with a wire cutter, and then you'd have to restrip it and do all that. Or these particular outlets, they actually have slots up on top where you could actually release these wires, and all you have to do is put something flat in there, kind of like your flathead screwdriver, stick it in there and pull it out. That's all it is. Put something flat in there and wiggle it through. Of course, there it is. So you typically have a hot wire, which is black, a neutral wire, which is white, and then you have a ground wire, and typically that is put in place with a green screw here, and you just unscrew that, and you can kind of see where you'll need your needle nose pliers, because you'll see here that the ground wire is kind of looped over the screw, and that's where the needle nose will come into play. Okay, so that's it. You've taken out your outlet, your old outlet. You could throw that away or keep it for a rainy day. I don't think you'd want to do that, just in case. And that's what you're left with. You're left with 3 basic wires. Some outlets might have more, depending on how your home is wired up. But just remember how they were. If you have 2 black wires, 2 white wires, keep them together as they were in your old outlet. But typically, this is a pretty simple, basic outlet. Now with the USB plug that we have, the new one, you can see we actually have the screw types. So on one side we have a gold wire or bronze wire, and on the other side we have a silver wire, and on the bottom we have a ground, similar to what we had before. So you can pretty much tell where you have to put everything, but this particular one actually writes it out. Hot is for the black, white is for the white, and GR is for ground, not green but ground. Okay, so in this particular case we could do one of 2 things. We could loop the wires around the actual screws like the ground wire, but these come with plates. If you can see here, there's a plate there, and you can stick the wire behind this plate, and when you screw it in, it clamps it down. So that's what we'll do, because these are already exposed. We'll put it behind the plate like that, and we'll go in and screw this down so it's clamped in there. So this is nice and tight. We'll do the same for the silver or the white on this side. Put it into the clamp, plate, and we'll tighten that. Remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. So you turn right to tight, turn left to loosen. And then finally, we will put in the ground wire. Now here, it might be a little tricky because you need this little loop here. So, I mean, sometimes if you don't have the ground wire already looped, and I'll show you what it looks like. It'll be just straight, just like your black and white wire. What you do is you typically just take your needle nose plier and you loop it around, just like that. Small loop is fine. That way it's easy to put it around the screw underneath the head. Just coax it in there. Might take some wiggling. There. Sometimes what you may want to do is just open this up a bit more, so it just gets in there. But make sure it's at the base of that screw. You don't want it to sit on top of the head like it's doing right now. The gauge of this wire is kind of thick, so it's not cooperating. Maybe we'll go in from underneath. It's very important to make sure you have the ground wire on here. If there's any excess flow of electricity, it goes through the ground wire, and that way you won't risk blowing the circuit. So don't ever not put the ground wire on. Always put the ground wire on. So I got it on there. And again, righty tighty. Just put it right in there. Okay, so we have all three wires hooked up. And we put it in the right side up. And you'll see you have two screws on the top and bottom here that line up with the screw holes on the box, top and bottom. And all you do is you tuck in the wires behind it and line up the screws with the holes. You may want to start it with your fingers if you want to, just to get started and seated, and you pop it in there. Tighten it up. Don't tighten the top up all the way or the bottom up all the way. Just go back and forth so it's nice and even. You can push it in if you want, just to kind of see where it's at. Now the faceplate on these guys here might be a bit different than what we took off, and I'll show you what I have. Sometimes it's just simply putting on a faceplate, but you can see there's no hole in the middle like our old faceplate had to screw in this old screw there, so you can't reuse this faceplate. It comes with its own faceplates, which I'll show you right now. And I'll show you how to install those, obviously. Okay, so this is in there good and tight. So what we have Next is a subplate, which is this guy here. So this subplate goes on next, and you'll see two screws, one at the top, one at the bottom, and that lines up with a screw hole on the top here and at the bottom here. So what we want to do is, because these are flathead screws, is put those on there. Tighten that up. It's kind of like an adapter plate. So it's getting cleaned up a bit nicely now, but now we have these guys here. So then what they do is they provide yet the final faceplate, and you'll see it's nice and clean. There's no screws around it. What it is you have some little peg looking things on the back on each corner, and those fit into these holes here. Tension fit clips basically. And all you do is you just line it up and you clip it in. And there you go. All done. You have your brand new USB powered plug. It looks nice and flush, nice and clean all the way around. And next thing you do is you just turn on the power and fire it up, and that's what I'll do next. So I'll be right back after I turn on the power from my box, and we'll try it out. Alright, and welcome back. I just turned on the power back at my circuit breaker to this outlet, so we should be all ready to go. If you have a circuit tester, definitely you'd probably want to use that to test out the circuit before you plug anything in, just to make sure it doesn't, nothing blows up. So here we go. We can test out the plugs on top. Again, I can't put anything in here one at a time because of that great safety feature that these particular plugs have. It'll only go in if I put two prongs in at the same time. There we go. So they're in, and my circuit breaker is showing 110 volts. That's at the top. Let's do the same at the bottom. 110 at the bottom. Now the USB, I can't exactly, this circuit tester doesn't have a USB port, or I don't know how to use this particular tester to test a USB port. So what I'll do is I'll use one of my smartwatches that I got recently to test it out. And of course this has a base, a charging base that is connected to a USB cable. Alright, so that's what we'll do. We'll just put the watch on to charge, and what we can do is plug in the USB into the USB and just watch the face of the watch, and it should start charging. There it is. Got the charging bolt 92%, and it's charging. So that's one side. Let's try the other side. So I took it out. Alright, stop charging, put this guy back in. And there we go. It is charging. Perfect, so everything works out. I hope you guys found this to be very interesting, very enlightening. You've learned something. Please subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments or suggestions for any future videos, please let me know in the comment section below. Like us if you like this video as well, and if you didn't find this video particularly enlightening or anything new, or if you think I did something wrong, blatantly wrong, please also put that in the comments and we could all learn together. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.